I'm Regina Zona, and I'm a voice teacher and dramatic coach here in New York. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to know whether you are with the right voice teacher. I've been teaching for almost 27 years now, and the one thing that I have learned in this process of all these years teaching is that anybody can put a sign out their window saying voice lessons taught here. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that teacher is the right teacher for you. And so sometimes you get into a situation where you're with a teacher that maybe you thought was going to be great, or you had heard was going to be great, and you're not quite making the progress that you want to make, and you need to analyze whether or not this is the right teacher for you, because not every teacher works for everybody. So I just wanted to give you some ideas about what I consider to be a good teacher, and give you some things to think about, and ask yourself some questions about whether it is that you are getting these things out of your voice lessons. So I think that probably the one thing that is maybe the most important thing, the thing at the top of my list, is that your teacher should be able to diagnose what issues you have and give you clear tools to address those issues. Now that seems very obvious, doesn't it? I mean, we would hope that every voice teacher is like that. But you may find that your voice teacher cannot communicate effectively in a way that you can understand to fix issues. So there may be several issues that you have to deal with, and your teacher may only work on one thing at a time. But you should be able to detect as to whether or not that teacher can help you on how to fix those issues within the first couple of lessons, So diagnosing the issues is what brings it to the light. So they may say, well, you have tongue tension, or you're bringing too much vocal weight into the passaggio and above, or when you approach the top, you're lifting your shoulders. Okay, so that's a diagnosis, all right? So that's good to know. But the tools on how to fix those issues are the important things, okay? So the answers to those previous statements need to sometimes be more than don't do that, okay? So don't tighten your tongue, or don't raise your shoulders, don't bring too much weight to the top. I mean, those seems like obvious answers, but those don't do it responses are not necessarily the most effective way for a student to understand how to not do it. They need to be able to address those issues in a way that you can understand. Now, I'm going to tell you, in all of my years of teaching, about 85 to 90% of my students understand the initial language that I give them about how to fix particular issues. They understand the concepts, they understand how it is that I communicate it, usually on the first try, and through time and repetition, they can usually make those things work. But 10 to 15% of the students that I have come across will not understand my initial language. I will say what I have said to the 85 or 90% of the students, and they just don't get it. They don't understand what it is that I'm saying. So what a good teacher's job is to realize that that student does not understand your initial language, and they have to find another language to speak in order to make that student understand. That's where the proverbial bag of tricks comes into play. You have to make sure that if a student does not understand a concept the first time, then in the first way that you describe it, you have to be able to describe it in a different way the second time. perhaps in a different way the third time, perhaps in a different way a fourth time. And if your teacher cannot communicate it in a different way, then perhaps that teacher is not ever going to be able to communicate it to you. Now, it's also important that you interact with your teacher, okay? Don't just stand there and try to make what they're saying on that first level happen, and you don't understand it, but you just keep trying it without communicating to your teacher that you don't understand it. Ask your teacher questions. Make sure that you're engaging with them to guide them to try to find another way to explain it to you. Otherwise, there's nothing that that teacher is going to be able to do because they're not understanding that you're not understanding it. So that's important. One of the things that I want to mention is beware of demonstrators. There are some teachers that demonstrate a lot. This is the right way to do it, they say, and then they sing it for you. Now, demonstrations, I'm not knocking it completely because, demonstrations by your teacher may be very helpful, especially if the teacher and the student are of the same voice part or of the same fach. But demonstration is rarely an effective tool on how to do something, okay? They might be able to demonstrate something so that you can hear the difference or you can feel the difference if they're addressing something with support or getting on your body in some way. But the thing is that a good teacher has to back up that demonstration with a verbal communication as to exactly what it was that they were doing. Okay? That is the way that you're going to be able to understand it. So, you've got to make sure that you're getting that verbal communication from that teacher. And then the demonstration then just supports that. Okay? All right, so being able to diagnose the problem and give you specific tools on how to fix the problem. That's number one. The next thing that you can ask yourself as to whether or not this teacher is really giving you what you need is that you really should be able to see and feel progress. Okay, so again, this seems very obvious, okay? You have to feel like you're doing better, all right, as time goes on. But I want to give you a quick caveat to this. There are no quick fixes to anything, all right? Working through issue takes time, all right? You want to make sure that, sometimes you have a new teacher and you come to this teacher with specific issues and you want that quick fix. You want that thing that teacher can just talk to you about and immediately, okay, that fixes the problem. Yeehaw, everything's great. All right. But the thing is that vocal work takes time and you need to put in the time in order to see the progress. All right. Sometimes with a new teacher, you work on issues that don't work themselves out within the first couple of weeks. Okay. Maybe those issues don't even work out through the next couple of months. That doesn't mean that you're with the wrong teacher. Okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to find another teacher. But if you are with the right teacher, they should be able to show you a clear path as to how it is that you're going to fix those issues. And you should be able to see progress, even if it's just a little bit and it's slow going. If you're walking out of every single lesson that you have and you feel like you can't do anything right, and in your practice sessions you feel like you just can't accomplish what you want to, then that is when you need to start thinking about changing something. You need to communicate those things to your teacher. You need to say to them, okay, I don't feel like I'm making progress. And you need to find clear answers as to what is the path that they're on and what are the benchmarks that you're going to experience. And hopefully your teacher will be able to tell you that in a way that you'll feel confident that you are on the right path and that you're just going through growing pains. All of that being said, you have to take responsibility for your own progress, okay? If you aren't seeing the progress, you've got to talk to your teacher about it. You need to state clearly what it is that you want. You need to ask questions on why it isn't happening, what it is that you need to get, what it is that you need to do in order to make it happen. And if the way that your teacher is explaining things to you, if that doesn't make sense or it's not producing the results that you need, ask them to explain it in a different way. You need to be upfront with them about where you are and what you're feeling about your progress. And remember that it's a process. It's going to take time. You don't have to leave every lesson feeling like your life has been changed, okay? That's rarely going to happen. But there should always be a sense that you're moving forward. And that will be the indication that you're with the right person. Okay, so now we're getting into something a little bit more emotional, and that is that your teacher, a good teacher, should always be honest with you. They should always be supportive of you, and they should never, ever be abusive to you. Okay? Again, seems like an obvious point. But the thing is that the voice-student-teacher relationship is a very delicate one, because our voice, our instrument, is completely wrapped up in our bodies and in our emotions. And therefore, when we are singing, using our voice, using our bodies in our voice lessons, we are often at our most vulnerable. And we never want a teacher to take advantage of that. The teacher needs to create a safe environment for you to feel like you can be at your most vulnerable, which will allow you to break through to the next level. Now, there are some teachers that will support you, absolutely. And however, that does not mean that a good teacher is only one that blows sunshine up your butt. Okay? You want them to be supportive. You want them to be there for you and to be kind. But that doesn't mean that a good teacher doesn't always have a firm hand or has high expectations for you. I mean, a good teacher can be very firm and make you try to live up to the highest potential that you have. But the thing is that you want to make sure that that firm hand never turns into an abusive hand. The best teachers have high standards for their students, and sometimes they need to give you a reality check. However, when your student when your teacher belittles you, or calls you names, or becomes physical with you, or throws things at you, I know maybe you're thinking, oh, that's ridiculous. I've never heard of a teacher that does that. Well, there are teachers that have done that. That is not okay. And it doesn't matter whether this teacher is the most famous teacher in the United States. If you are feeling less than when you leave your voice lessons, then you are not in a situation that is conducive to growth. So if you're feeling worthless, you need to find a new teacher. You want your teacher to be honest with you. You want your teacher to be honest about your progress and your potential. But there shouldn't be any kind of behavior that allows you to slip into this idea that you feel worthless. That is not good teaching, because that kind of teaching is about making the teacher feel powerful, not about empowering the student. A good teacher will always empower the student to be their very best. That's what you need. Support also comes in the form of professional behavior. If your teacher isn't returning your phone calls or your emails in a timely manner, or cancels your lessons on a consistent basis, you're not high on their priority list. And you might want to find somebody else that actually will respond to you in a timely manner. And I know that's really hard to hear, because, some of the A-list teachers that you hear about are so busy and they have very little room in their studio, and, it's hard to get in touch with them. But, there is, at some point, you have to say, you know what, if they're not willing to pick up a phone call or write a 2-sentence email saying, I'm so sorry, I haven't gotten in touch, I've been super busy, I'll call you then, or whatever, then it's not worth the trouble. They are not going to give you the attention that you need. So find somebody else. Okay. Your teacher should also maintain a professional relationship and not cross the line into personal territory. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have a social relationship with your teacher, okay? I mean, it's perfectly fine to go out to dinner, to have drinks with your teacher. I mean, to have that social relationship, which is separate from the professional relationship, meaning that when you're actually in their studio and you are paying them to teach you, that they focus on the task at hand and not, make it another social event. That is perfectly fine, and that's great if you can maintain that kind of relationship. But what I'm talking about is when your teacher starts to put themselves into your personal life without you inviting that. If your teacher, unsolicited, says things to you like you need to dump your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or you need to cut ties with your family, or something else that really has nothing to do with singing, but they say that within the guise of this is going to make you a better performer, a better artist, or whatever, that is not okay. It is not okay for that teacher to cross the line into your personal life. If you really need their advice, you can ask for their advice. But when you allow that teacher to step into your life on that level, there is something going on there that is beyond making you a better singer. And it's very, very important that you understand that line. If you need life advice, find a psychologist or a life coach. Your voice teacher is there to teach you how to sing. If they start getting personal with you, then that undermines the professional relationship that you need to have in order to be vulnerable enough to learn how to sing. Okay? So, those are my ideas. If you have other ideas about, your voice lessons and your voice teacher and what makes them great, share them with me. Comment below and tell me how you discovered that this teacher is the right teacher for you. I would love to know. And if you have any questions, please let me know below. So good luck and have a great voice lesson this week.